Today we focused on Putin's political hostages. There are hundreds of them. By general estimates, more than 700 political prisoners are held in Russia under terrible conditions, under bad treatment and torture. And today we have highlighted only 3 cases of people who are behind bars. That's Vladimir Kara-Murza. So that's why we have wife of Vladimir, Yevgenia. We have Alexei Gorinov, who is represented by his lawyer, Denis. And we have Alexandra Skochilenko, 33-year-old who was sentenced for 7 years in prison because of her public actions. Indeed, the Russian Federation became from oppressive to aggressive. These are crimes not only against the opponents, political opponents, but against the neighboring Ukraine for the time of being. So we see this tendency developing into something every time worse. But indeed, focusing on political prisoners, we have to find ways out. It can't be as people sentenced for 25 years with no rights of appeal, with absolutely terrible conditions in detention cells. We have to speak about this, firstly. We have to highlight, we have to name all of those people held as political hostages by Kremlin regime. And indeed, we have to look forward for ways how to, resolve this situation. Putin is illegitimate president of Russian Federation. And I'm looking forward for the last session of the European Parliament in Strasbourg to adopt a resolution where we have a clear definition of the political situation in this regard. So that's why today's discussion was indeed very helpful. I thank you, Bill Browder, for great cooperation in this regard. And I ask Bill to continue.
Petrus, you've been a stalwart ally in our fight, the Magnitsky Justice Campaign, in the fight for the freedom of Vladimir Kara-Murza and the fight for other victims of the regime, and we're very, very grateful for your support here at the European Parliament. People sometimes mistakenly say that Vladimir Putin is a strong leader, but I think that today's session very much proves that he's a weak leader. If he was a strong leader, he wouldn't have to imprison Vladimir Kara-Murza for 25 years for opposing the war, or Alexei Gorinov, or Ms. Skochilenko. That's a sign of a weak man. That's a sign of a man who's scared of even the slightest bit of criticism. And when Putin claims that he got 87% of the vote, the whole thing was fabricated. And these individuals, like Vladimir, like Alexei, like Ms. Skochilenko, these are the people that are the strong ones. These are the people who should be the future of Russia. And the one thing that I would say is that we spend a lot of time talking about all of the ways in which we can help Ukraine fight the Russian Federation, and that's highly justified, and we should do more. But we spend way too little time talking about how we can help the people who are fighting Putin from the inside. And that has to be our priority. And these 3 cases are the tip of the iceberg. And these 3 cases, we should help these 3 people, and we should help everyone else who's unjustly, politically persecuted in Russia. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. May I ask Yevgenia Kara-Murza to speak probably on behalf of those political prisoners represented today.
Petrus, Bill, I want to thank you both and say that I am incredibly lucky and truly blessed to have such amazing, strong allies in my fight not just for Vladimir's freedom, but for his life, and in my fight to continue his work as best I can. Thank you very much for providing me this platform to be able to bring the voices of those the regime is trying to silence back home. By the most conservative estimates of Memorial, Russia's most respected human rights organization and co-laureate of the Nobel Peace Prize, the number of political prisoners in the Russian Federation is approaching 700 people. While the total number of Russians who have faced criminal or administrative charges for exercising free speech comes to an astonishing 117,000 people since 2018. According to a recent media investigation, there have been more political trials during Putin's fourth presidential term alone than under Soviet leaders Leonid Brezhnev and Nikita Khrushchev combined. I am also joined here today by Denis Shedov, an amazing colleague from Memorial, an organization who, despite all the persecution, all the banning, the fact that its employees were forced to exile and continue the work from outside of Russia, an organization that continues its extremely important work of informing the world about the situation with human rights in Russia. And I'm also joined here by Nadezhda Skochilenko, an amazingly strong, kind, beautiful mother of Alexandra Skochilenko, Sasha Skochilenko. We are here, all three of us, to tell the stories of all those people whom the regime is trying to silence back home. Because these stories deserve to be heard. These voices deserve to be heard. And the names of these incredibly brave Russians who are standing up to the regime and fighting it with all they've got deserve to be known, because they are the alternative to Putin's regime. And they should be seen as alternative and accepted as an alternative, the only acceptable alternative on the international stage. I believe that the free and the release of all political prisoners in Russia should absolutely be part of some post-war settlement that will one day, hopefully sooner rather than later, take place after Ukraine's victory in this war. But there are people out there who might not survive until the end of the war. And these people, the list of these people, includes Alexei Gorinov, a municipal deputy in Moscow, who during a municipal council meeting said it would be inappropriate to hold children's drawing contests while kids in Ukraine were dying on a daily basis. For that, he was sentenced to several years in prison. That list also includes Sasha Skochilenko, an artist from St. Petersburg, who received 7 years in prison for replacing price tags at a local supermarket with anti-war messages. That list also includes Igor Baryshnikov, an activist who was imprisoned for protesting against the war. Yegor Bolazeykin, a 17-year-old high schooler who was sentenced to 6 years in prison for a failed attempt to set a conscription center on fire. This list includes Zarima Musaeva and Maria Ponomarenko and many other people, and my husband as well, who survived 2 poisoning attacks in the past by a group of FSB operatives, a group of assassins in the service of the Russian state. And today he is in prison, sentenced to 25 years of strict regime, and he's held in a disciplinary cell for the last 6 months, deprived of medical care and normal contact with his loved ones. So in this regard, I wholeheartedly support the European Parliament's call on the Council to appoint a EU special envoy for political prisoners and hostages in the Russian Federation. I believe that this would be an amazingly important person for us here, for all the families of political prisoners and representatives of political prisoners, the person to whom these people could come and bring these stories. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Evgenia. Indeed, it is absolutely legitimate call for the European Parliament to do more. So we have to publish all the names of political prisoners. It's a very grim reminder for us, but as well as the argument against the Kremlin, against the oppressive regime of Vladimir Putin, who sees its country's future in a different way. But again, it gives a certain hope for us, because there is a political opposition. There are people who think differently and see Russia as a normal country in future. So it is a great contribution, I would say, to the defeat of the Putin's regime. One will happen, I am sure, on a battlefield in Ukraine, but another one, politically. Those political prisoners, those opponents who are behind bars and who are still continue their activity, they bring us a clear message, a message of hope. So that's why we have to do whatever it takes to support those people, find the ways and means to support associates, family members, because they all suffer. I mean, seeing loved ones under such a treatment. So here we stand, and we will continue our work. It's a great, reminder for next incoming Parliament, European Parliament. We have to continue our fight. Nothing is over, and we will be committed to this cause. And I thank you, Bill Browder. I thank you, Evgenia, Nadezhda, and Denise for participation in our today's events. And I hope our joint commitment will bring a change we're speaking about. Thank you.